Welcome, everyone, to Real Estate 360 Live. I'm your host, Ryan Sloper. For those of you not familiar with the show, my guest and I will cover every angle of real estate under the sun, from interest rates to the economy to what's happening in Washington. Anything that affects our local real estate markets will be covered here. If you got credit issues and you're trying to get pre-qualified to purchase maybe the first home that you've ever bought, or whether you're looking to move up and you just have a few minor collections that are hindering you, we can point you in the right direction to get that cleared up, maybe as soon as 30 to 60 days to be able to potentially get you into that house. If you're looking to refinance to the lowest rates in U.S. history, there's not been a better time than now to do so. I can put you in touch with a direct lender that would gladly help you out today. The phone number, the off-air phone number to reach out to us is 877-245-2030. That's 877-245-2030. And remember, that's an off-air phone number. If you call that phone number, just leave your name, phone number, and contact information and question if you have one, and we'd be glad to get back to you. Also, you can visit us via the website at realestate360live.com. That's realestate360live.com. And make sure that you're joining us every Monday from 9 to 10 a.m. on here on 1580 a.m. If you have any questions regarding real estate, remember it's covered here. We've got you. We've got a great show lined up for you guys today. Joining me on our panel to discuss the many issues over the last couple of weeks, because we had off obviously last week for Veterans Day, so we want to get caught back up since the presidential election, as well as other things that have transpired since then. Joining me on our panel is Cammarosano, who is the general manager of HomeGain. Louis is often cited in the media as an industry expert in the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, CNN Money, Fox Business, Smart Money, MSN, and numerous others. Louis, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing grand, Ryan. How are you?
I'm doing well, sir. So last time we spoke was right before the presidential election, so we need to get caught up since then.
And you called it for Obama.
Yeah, I did. I just had that feeling that was going to take place. So obviously that's what happened. And now we are basically faced with the same thing we were facing right before the election. We
didn't hear about it.
Exactly.
During the election.
Exactly. We didn't hear anything about the fiscal cliff, what people planned on doing about it, what was going to take place with taxes. We never really got any detailed plans from either candidate. So now all of a sudden, it's back to Congress, trying to get something sorted out by the end of this year. And you know what? It's just more or less it's a bunch of crap, to be honest with you, Louis. I mean, it's just nothing's going to get done. I would imagine that the Bush tax cuts are going to expire, and I feel that the tax rates are going to go up on the wealthy, as Obama had already stated many times. What that's going to do, in my opinion, is going to hurt businesses all over again. I sent you an email. I've heard rumblings from a lot of companies within Northern Virginia that, based upon the outcome of the election, that it looks like that they're going to trim anywhere from 20 to 30% off their workforce. I can see that this is going to be the theme throughout the country. I feel like layoffs are going to be plentiful, and I just don't know. I mean, we obviously just had last week we had Hostess shutting down. Obviously, Hostess has been around forever. I mean, who hasn't had Twinkies and ding dongs and everything else? And they're shutting down. And I believe, after kind of reviewing some of the details, it was basically that workers were going to be set to have their pension slashed and take a reduction in pay, and weren't.
Welcome
I guess
to the club.
Right, and I guess that they felt like they were going to be able to push them up against a wall, and they were just going to cave, and that didn't happen. So now 18,000+ people are now out of work. So it's interesting because all of this has been transpiring right after the election, and it's just when Obama was there trying to say that there's hope and we're going to turn the corner. I don't see it happening. What do you think is going to happen, Louis, over the next 6 months to a year, and what is Congress going to get anything at all figured out before the end of the year?
They're not going to get anything figured out because they're framing the issue in terms of this fiscal cliff.
Yeah,
and we've already gone over the fiscal cliff many, many years ago. I mean, right now the debt is $16.1 trillion. It's over 102% of GDP. The last couple of years, The annual deficit has been, 1.2, 1.3 million. There's $84 trillion in unfunded liabilities that is owed to federal employees and Social Security, Medicare, and so on. So we've already gone past the fiscal cliff in terms of being able to pay back the money that we've borrowed. We continue to spend it. And what they did, I guess it was a year and a half ago when they created the concept of the fiscal cliff, was they came to a big realization that if we don't act now to cut spending, raise revenue, we're going to force ourselves to act later, which is right around now. Of course, unless we agree not to, because somehow it might cause a recession or cause us to get unelected in the next election cycle. So all they're trying to do now is not to cut spending. What they're trying to do now is to avoid the spending cuts that they schedule to happen this year at the beginning of 2013. So what they're trying to do is avoid the tough decisions in making the cuts because they're worried they're going to cause a recession. And the only little argument in all this is Obama wants to extend the tax cuts for everybody other than the wealthiest, and the Republicans don't want to extend the tax cuts. They want to extend the tax cuts for everyone. And it's kind of a false argument because whether you tax the rich or not, that's not going to solve the deficit. All that's going to solve is somebody's kind of envy issue that rich people shouldn't have that money, that it belongs to the government. And if you do tax the rich or anybody else, that puts less money in the private sector and less money that could help the economy through savings and investment and spending.
Yeah, and I mean, if they go changing capital gains rates and everything else, I mean, I don't know if many people are aware of this, but if they find out that they're going to be taxed at a higher rate, they don't want to take a pay cut. They're not going to want to make less money than they did the year before, so where do they have to turn? They have to turn to making cuts within their company. So they're not going to just all of a sudden start to want to grow their business, spend more money hiring new people to try to really grow in a recessionary environment if they know that they're going to be taxed harder.
So and also, if they grow their business and add more employees in the coming years, then they're going to have to pay under Obamacare.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw, that was one of the things that I wanted to bring up, Lewis, was that there was a couple of states, and I for the life of me can't remember off the top of my head. I want to say maybe one was Montana, and there was another state that actually, one of the things that was on the ballot was actually that the state was not going to enforce Obamacare.
I think it was they weren't going to set up those exchanges.
Yeah, that's what it was. Okay, so we can already kind of see a lot of pullback from what the federal government's trying to push on these states. And I mean, as you've probably seen across the country, I mean, we have states that are opening up casinos. Maryland, for instance, that was the big thing here in the D.C. metro area, right there right across the water from Alexandria. They're opening up huge MGM casinos, and so the gambling and then the marijuana. I mean, it's just they're really grasping for money making operations here. And that is the way that they're going to have the local governments are going to be able to find their money to continue to operate, because it's not going to be from local businesses. I'm convinced of that, from small local businesses. Maybe I should rephrase that. So I think that this is really what's to come for this country. I mean, we're going to see more and more of this. I feel.
Ryan, you know what happens when you hurt small businesses? They're the ones who create the new jobs. And what it does then is it allows the larger companies to become more powerful, and it's much easier for them to corrupt the politicians because they're centralized. They have more money. They can afford to deal with the regulations, and they've had these small, pesky competitors kind of priced out of the market.
Yeah, absolutely. And, so many of you are, obviously we are a real estate radio show, so they're like, okay, well, how does all of this, is it going to affect the real estate markets? Now, in the D.C. metro area, we have had a very, very healthy demand for homes. That has not changed, okay? And I think that it's been getting better and better because we've had more and more people that are actually moving from outside of the area to here because of the job situation. Now, with all that being said, I believe that, that there's probably going to be huge defense contracts lost here in Northern Virginia, so we might actually lose up to $150,000, $200,000 jobs in the coming years. So that's going to hurt a little bit. But the demand has stayed strong because interest rates are low. The demand in the D.C. metro area has not been the problem. The problem has been those people that are demanding the housing, that want the housing, that want to be able to buy a home. They're going to buy a home. They go to get pre-approved, and a large percentage of them, I mean, probably anywhere from 50 to 70% of those people are unable to do so because they can't obtain financing. Many people don't have cash, $200,000 or $300,000 to just put up for a house. So when they can't get financing to purchase a home, they're left no other option but to go and rent. Now, this is where it gets really interesting because rents have been rising relatively rapid, especially in the D.C. metro area. And I would say that landlords are getting to be a lot more picky who they're renting for because, obviously they want, since there's more people out there that are now forced to rent, they're going to take the more well-qualified people to rent their homes. So, Lewis, you can see there being an issue now if somebody couldn't get qualified for financing on a home, maybe for some credit dings or whatever else. Maybe they had a short sale a couple years ago, and now all of a sudden they turn to go and try to rent a property, and the landlord's going to review the credit report, and they might have similar issues there. They're going to have a hard time finding housing in general. There's not many homes on the market to buy, and there's fewer homes that are on the market to rent.
And you're pointing out a tremendous irony. All these programs that were created in the last 10, 20, 30 years were designed to make it easier and more affordable for people to buy houses, and now the net result is they've lost their houses and they're having trouble even finding accommodation.
Yeah, I mean, just recently I was working with a couple that was trying to short sell their home. They bought in Falls Church, which is, it's a high-end area, very, very affluent there. Bought the house back in the hype for probably $900. Now it's only worth $600. And they were small business owners, and this economy has taken, a turn for the worse, and their business has suffered because of that. So they wanted to take the route of short selling their home because they did know, and were smart enough to know that by short selling their home, it was going to be less of a credit ding to them than actually letting it go to foreclosure. But the harsh reality of everything is that their mortgage payment was pretty high buying it at that sales price. But now trying to find a townhouse or something to rent in the $1,500 range, very difficult to do so. Very difficult to do so in the area that they wanted to live. So their options are to move a lot further out or to pay a higher rent.
And Falls Church is already somewhat out there, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's Falls Church is closer into the city actually, but it's probably you can get to everything from there for about 20-25 minutes in Falls Church, but she was looking to move from a single family to a townhouse and thinking that, I should easily be able to find something for the $1,500 range, moving out to like Centerville, which is, further west and south from there. And, it was very difficult to do so. A matter of fact, the exact situation is I could not find anything on the multiple listing system that fit her criteria. So I was basically telling her that the best thing that I thought she could possibly do is to look on Craigslist or other, online systems where people would just put their house up there for rent.
Or
right?
Move to Texas.
Exactly, or move to Texas, move somewhere else. But the cost of living in Northern Virginia, the D.C. metro area, is not very very low here. And if you're not making substantial wages, just the cost of housing is going to put a big dent and the monthly money that you're bringing in. So, this is an issue that I see is popping up time and time again. And like you said, Louis, there's all these government programs that are supposed to be making it easier for the consumer to find housing. It's making it much more difficult. And I really don't think that this is going to change. I think that things are only going to get worse. We have the Fed that's out there touting and saying, we're doing everything we possibly can. We're keeping, buying up mortgage-backed securities to keep interest rates low. I got news for you, Fed. That's not the problem, okay? The interest rates where they're at, they're phenomenal, but people can't take advantage of them. And what are you going to do? Are you going to start to try to force the bank's hands to lend the money? It's not going to happen.
Well, Ryan, what they don't understand are resources and capital goods and land are limited. And money should be as well. But, if you have land and you want to increase its value, you build a house on it, it takes work. Or you mine it and you produce precious metals, or you make it into farmland or you make a park out of it. But you can't just increase the supply of land without work. The value of land. But money, they can increase that supply infinitely with no effort whatsoever. And eventually that catches up with you because you've got more money chasing a fixed amount of goods that can only be improved so much.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. We're up on a break, Lewis. When we come back, we're going to jump into the Fed's stress test on the banks and what their worst-case scenario is. Stay right there when we come back.
Are you or someone you know looking to buy or sell a home? When you use a HomeGain Realtor to buy or sell a home, you can get $150. Visit HomeGain.com and click on the Promo 150 banner at the top of the page to get started.